Giorgia Meloni just received a phone call from Donald Trump that lasted 11 minutes. When it ended, she sat in silence for a long time. No statement was released. No press conference was called. No diplomatic response was issued. Just silence. Because what Trump told her in those 11 minutes wasn't a warning. It wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't the kind of uncomfortable conversation that allies occasionally have behind closed doors. It was an ultimatum so brutal, so personal, and so impossible to meet that the woman who built her entire political identity on her relationship with Washington is now privately telling her closest advisors that she doesn't know if her government survives the next 30 days. The subject of that call was Iran. And what Trump is demanding from Meloni over the Iran conflict will force her to make a choice that destroys her, no matter which direction she turns. To understand why Trump is furious at Giorgia Meloni specifically over Iran, you have to understand what Italy has been doing quietly while publicly presenting itself as a loyal American ally. Because Meloni didn't just fail to support Washington's position on Iran, she actively undermined it. While standing at podiums next to Trump, while posting photographs of their meetings on social media, while allowing Italian state media to celebrate her as the one European leader with a direct line to the White House, her government was running a parallel foreign policy that Washington's intelligence apparatus had been tracking for months. Italian diplomatic channels had remained quietly open to Tehran long after the Trump administration had made its position on Iran crystal clear. Italian energy companies with close ties to the government had continued exploring back-channel arrangements with Iranian counterparts, searching for ways to access Iranian oil that would bypass American sanctions. Italian ports had been used as transit points for financial instruments that American Treasury officials believed were connected to Iranian state entities. And Italian diplomats in 3 separate Middle Eastern capitals had been meeting with Iranian counterparts without notifying Washington, without briefing NATO allies, and without leaving any official record that those meetings ever took place. Trump didn't find out through diplomatic channels. He found out through the NSA. And when the intelligence landed on his desk, he didn't send a strongly worded cable to Rome. He picked up the phone himself. The 11-minute call happened on a Tuesday morning, Rome time, when Meloni was preparing for a scheduled cabinet meeting. Her chief of staff interrupted the meeting with a single sentence. The president of the United States is on the line, and he says it cannot wait. What followed, according to 3 separate sources with knowledge of the conversation, was unlike anything Meloni had experienced in her political career. Trump did not begin with pleasantries. He did not acknowledge the history of their relationship or reference their previous meetings. He opened with a single question that made Meloni's blood run cold. He asked her directly whether she understood what Iran was planning. Not what Italy suspected, not what European intelligence agencies had assessed, what Iran was planning. The specificity of that question meant only one thing. American intelligence had penetrated Iranian operational planning at a level that Rome had no idea existed. And whatever that intelligence showed, it was serious enough that Trump had decided to call Meloni personally rather than routing the conversation through normal diplomatic channels. That decision alone told Meloni everything she needed to know about how dangerous the situation had become. What American intelligence had discovered about Iran's next move in the region was not being shared with European partners through normal NATO briefing channels. It was being held at the highest classification level, shared only with a handful of allied governments that Washington considered completely trustworthy and completely aligned with American strategic objectives. Italy was not on that list. And Meloni knew in the first 30 seconds of that phone call that the reason Italy wasn't on that list was because someone in her government or someone connected to her government had been feeding information back to Tehran. The implications were catastrophic. If an Italian government official had been compromised by Iranian intelligence, if back-channel communications had been used to tip off Tehran about American or Israeli operational planning, then Meloni wasn't just facing a diplomatic crisis. She was facing a criminal investigation that could reach directly into her cabinet. Trump's voice, according to those familiar with the call, was not angry. It was something worse than angry. It was cold, controlled, precise. the voice of someone who had already made every decision that needed to be made and was now simply informing the other party of consequences that were already in motion. Trump told Meloni that the United States had evidence of Italian diplomatic contacts with Iranian officials that directly contradicted Italy's publicly stated position on Tehran. He told her that these contacts had occurred at a time when American and Israeli forces were in active operational planning phases, and that information about those planning phases may have been compromised as a result. He told her that the administration was conducting a full review of intelligence sharing protocols with Rome, and that during that review, Italy would be removed from certain briefing categories that it had previously been included in. He told her that American military coordination with Italian bases in the Mediterranean was being reassessed in light of the security concerns that had been identified. And then he told her that she had 72 hours to provide a full accounting of every Italian government contact with Iranian officials over the preceding 18 months. Not a diplomatic summary, not a carefully edited report prepared by foreign ministry bureaucrats. A full accounting, every meeting, every communication, every financial transaction that Italian state-connected entities had conducted with Iranian counterparts. 72 hours. The cabinet meeting Meloni had been preparing for never happened. She spent the rest of that morning in a closed-door session with her intelligence chief, her foreign minister, and her attorney general. No minutes were taken. No staff members were present. Just 4 people in a room trying to calculate how much Trump actually knew, how much was still hidden, and whether there was any possible way to contain what was coming before the 72-hour clock ran out. But what Meloni didn't know, what she couldn't have known in that room, was that the 72-hour deadline wasn't the real deadline. It was a distraction. While her team was scrambling to construct a response that would satisfy Washington without exposing the full extent of Italian-Iranian contacts, Trump's team was already 3 steps ahead. The real action wasn't happening in Rome. It wasn't happening in Washington. It was happening in Tel Aviv, in Riyadh, and in 3 other capitals that were about to make Meloni's position completely and utterly untenable. Because Trump hadn't just called Meloni to demand answers. He had called her to deliver a message that he knew would get back to Tehran. And the message was designed to force Iran to react in a way that would expose every back channel that Italy had been using, reveal every contact that Meloni's government had been hiding, and make it impossible for Rome to deny what it had been doing. It was a trap. And Meloni had walked straight into it. The question now was not whether the truth would come out. The question was how much of it would destroy her government before she found a way to get ahead of it. And based on what was already happening in the intelligence agencies of 4 separate countries, the answer was all of it. The 72-hour clock was still running when the first leak hit. Not in Italian media, not in American newspapers. In a small but deeply connected Middle Eastern intelligence publication that had broken 3 major geopolitical stories in the preceding 18 months, each one later confirmed by mainstream outlets that had initially dismissed them as speculation. The leak was surgical. It didn't dump everything at once. It released a single document, 1 page, a meeting summary from a conversation between an Italian diplomatic official and a senior Iranian foreign ministry representative that had taken place in Muscat, Oman, 14 months earlier. The document listed the topics discussed, the names present, the commitments made, and one specific piece of information that made every intelligence analyst who read it go completely still. The Italian official had provided the Iranian representative with a general timeline of American-led pressure campaigns being planned against Tehran for the following year. Not operational details, not classified military information, but a political roadmap, a preview of what Washington intended to do and when. That single page destroyed any possibility that Meloni could frame what had happened as routine diplomatic contact between nations with complex relationships. This wasn't routine. This was Italy giving Iran advance warning of American strategy, and now the entire world could read it. Rome's response was immediate and desperate. The foreign ministry issued a statement within 2 hours, calling the document fabricated, calling the publication that released it a known disinformation outlet, and calling for calm while Italian authorities investigated the origin of the leak. It was the standard playbook: deny, discredit, delay. But the playbook failed within 6 hours because American officials, speaking anonymously to 3 separate Washington-based journalists, confirmed that the document was genuine. They didn't confirm every detail. They didn't specify exactly how it had been obtained, but they confirmed its authenticity. And once Washington confirmed it, the denial from Rome became evidence of something worse than the original transgression. It became evidence that Meloni had looked Trump in the eye during that 11-minute phone call and decided to hide everything rather than provide the full accounting he had demanded. That decision, that calculation, that concealment was still possible, even after Trump had called personally, told the administration everything it needed to know about whether Meloni could be trusted going forward. The answer was no. And the consequences of that answer were already being prepared. The military dimension moved first because it always moves fastest. The Pentagon quietly notified Italian Defense Ministry officials that 3 joint training exercises scheduled for the following month were being postponed indefinitely, pending a review of operational security protocols. The language was bureaucratic. The meaning was unmistakable. America was pulling back from military cooperation with Italy in real time, not through a dramatic announcement, not through a public confrontation, but through the slow, suffocating withdrawal of coordination that Italy's defense establishment depended on completely. Italian military commanders who had spent their careers operating inside American-led structures, depending on American logistics, American intelligence feeds, American air cover, suddenly found themselves being told that meetings were canceled, that communications were being rerouted, that certain channels they had used for years were temporarily suspended. Temporarily. That word appeared in every official communication. But every Italian general who received those messages understood that temporarily was diplomatic language for permanently if Rome didn't fix this immediately. Meanwhile, inside Italy, the political damage was accelerating faster than Meloni's team had any ability to manage. Matteo Salvini had been waiting for exactly this kind of moment. The deputy prime minister and leader of the League Party had never fully trusted Meloni's ability to manage the American relationship, had never believed that her personal chemistry with Trump was a substitute for genuine strategic alignment, and had spent 18 months positioning himself as the more authentically nationalist alternative within the coalition. Now he moved. Salvini called an emergency meeting of League Party leadership and emerged from it with a statement that stopped just short of withdrawing coalition support, but made clear that the League expected a full public explanation from the Prime Minister within 48 hours. The statement used the word accountability 4 times. It used the word transparency 3 times. It did not use the word confidence even once. That omission was deliberate, and everyone in Italian politics understood exactly what it meant. Salvini was preparing to pull the plug. He just hadn't decided yet whether the moment had come. But what was about to emerge from Washington in the next 24 hours would make that decision for him. Because Trump wasn't finished. The document leak was just the opening move. What came next would make the Muscat meeting look like a minor diplomatic footnote. And Meloni had no idea it was coming. This story is not slowing down. It is accelerating. Every hour that passes brings Meloni closer to a moment of no return. And when that moment arrives, when Trump makes his next move and Rome finally breaks, you need to be the first to know exactly what it means and why it changes everything. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Meloni survives this, or is her government already finished? Hit that like button, because what comes next is beyond anything the media is prepared to tell you.